Chapter 461. Percival's Plan. Olivia's fate of life thread was fine. The fate of fortune thread was protecting it from the fate of devouring thread, as Percival had expected. Olivia doesn't have the darkness element. She shouldn't have a fate of devouring thread. This makes it clear. The fate of devouring thread, eating, the fate of life thread is being done by Tartarus, not by people's own darkness element. The situation was not the worst, but it was far from good. The fate of devouring thread was encroaching on Olivia's fate of life thread, even if slowly. Percival had to hurry. If Olivia was not saved before her fate of fortune thread sacrificed itself to protect her fate of life thread, then she would lose all of her fate manipulation abilities. She was not Percival. She could not rebuild her fate of fortune thread after losing it. After looking around, Percival found Senator Nicholas in the same situation. His physical body was connected to the giant tree on Layer 3. Percival searched the area for years. He located Neo and Elizabeth next to the tree's base. They did not seem to be caught by the tree. However, like everyone, their fate of consciousness thread was inside the tree. No, Neo and Elizabeth's fate of consciousness thread was not exactly inside the tree. Neo's fate of death thread, fate of life thread, and fate of consciousness thread were joined together to form an infinity loop. The three threads were supporting each other, though Percival failed to understand how. A small part of Neo's fate of consciousness thread had broken away and entered the tree on Layer 3. Elizabeth's situation was more peculiar than Neo's. Her fate of life thread, green in color, and fate of consciousness thread, white in color, had almost merged into each other. A part of her merged fate of life and fate of consciousness thread was inside the tree. Although Neo's three fate threads were connected to each other, the distinction between them was as clear as day. Unlike him, Elizabeth's two fate threads had nearly become one. There were more things wrong with Elizabeth's fate threads, but something was stopping Percival from observing her closely. He felt that if he did not stop looking at her fate threads, his connection with his fate of fortune thread would snap by an unknown force. Knowing this was a warning by his fate of fortune thread, he stopped. Olivia, Nicholas, Neo, and Elizabeth are the only ones whose fate of life threads are okay. They are not dead yet, like others. Percival had to save them. But how? Manipulate fate to help them? That wouldn't work. Tartarus was too strong compared to him. He could manipulate fate related to Tartarus only a few times before he exhausted his fate of fortune thread. Although he could rebuild his fate of fortune thread, it took time. There was no guarantee his friends would be alive by then. I need to find the crux of the issue and try to make changes to it with my fate of fortune thread. Percival searched around the tree on Layer 3 for entrances. He had to warn Neo, as according to Sunshine, Neo could do something about the situation. But what can he do? Percival's fate of fortune thread weakened over the months he spent in the world of fate threads. His mind felt like it was split apart, and his soul burned with agony due to overusing his fate affinity. However, he held on. Time was distorted in the world of fate threads, which was why he could spend months searching for a solution here. If he left, he might not even have a day or an hour to overturn the situation. Percival suddenly noticed that a foreign fate of devouring thread attacked Neo's fate threads. Neo's fate of life thread began to shrivel, and his fate of death thread started to grow. He is dying. Panic seeped into him. Before he could react, another miraculous scene unfolded. The fate of consciousness thread started to vibrate. It generated a titanic amount of energy. The energy fused into the fate of life thread and became its nourishment. Huh? He is reviving? Percival had heard the rumors about Neo's immortality, but seeing it with his own eyes was shocking. The fate of devouring thread feasted on the fate of life thread. However, the energy produced by the fate of consciousness thread kept regrowing Neo's fate of life thread and prevented it from being eaten. Percival understood Neo was fighting someone, and he was losing. He swiftly looked around, trying to figure out who Neo was fighting. An extensive search using his fate of fortune thread told him Neo was with Elizabeth, the Void Dragon God, and another illusion. Percival should not have been able to see the fate threads of illusions created by Tartarus in the world of fate threads. But this illusion was different. It was as if countless fate of devouring threads were converging on it. A nexus point? The multiple subdimensions inside the Tartarus tree were nightmares. It made sense that the worlds had a central point, or an object that served as a foundation. This object should be its world core. Percival had not tried to search for the central point, since Tartarus must have kept it hidden. But the illusion looked like the central point, judging by how many fate of devouring threads were converging on it. Still, something felt missing. The number of fate of devouring threads was high, but it was not enough to account for all the fate of devouring threads he had seen. Could it be that Tartarus has divided its world core into several pieces? This way, even if it loses one of the smaller pieces, the world of nightmares wouldn't break. And using other pieces, it could slowly rebuild even its broken piece. Was something like this even possible? Percival didn't know. This situation was a first for him. All he could do was improvise according to the problem. An idea started to form in Percival's mind. This illusion is a small part of Tartarus' world core and thus acts as one of the many hubs of the world of nightmare. If this illusion dies, the world of nightmares should be affected, even if only for a moment. I might be able to use that moment to communicate with Neo. Chapter 462. Sea of all consciousness meeting darkness. Percival focused on the illusion. He did not know what Neo, Elizabeth, the Void Dragon God, and the illusion were fighting. Since the battle was happening within the tree that was present on Layer 3, he could not interfere. Not directly, at least. Percival began to gather fate of death threads from the surroundings. He would wait for the perfect moment and strike the moment he sensed the illusion to be in danger. It would kill the illusion and allow Percival to converse with Neo. Neo's POV. Darkness. Darkness everywhere. My consciousness floated in the empty space. Where was I? What was I doing? It was difficult to form thoughts. But I knew something. I was dead. Father devoured me. He could not devour me completely due to eternal, but his pace of devouring was faster than my regeneration. My seed of existence could not recover. Then how? How could I think? I had no body, no soul, and my seed of existence could barely function. I recalled my battles with Valkyria. Back then, I understood I could generate world energy and use it to revive myself. But world energy was created from consciousness. And without a body and soul, my consciousness should not exist. So, consciousness could exist without a body, soul, and seed of existence? Strange. Why was this possible? It was then that I saw a sea of white flames before me. Those weren't flames. They were extremely thin white threads grouped together. As they moved, they looked like flames. Wasn't that how world energy looked? Why was the sea similar to it? The answer came to me inexplicably. Sea of all consciousness. A place where everyone's consciousness existed. Even if the body, soul, and seed of existence were destroyed, their consciousness would remain in the sea of consciousness. Each thread in the sea of consciousness was a person who had once existed. Their knowledge, memory, and experiences were stored into those threads and flames. They seemed to be calling out to Neo, to become a part of them. No! Someone grabbed Neo and pulled him back before he entered the sea of consciousness in his intoxicated state. His eyes were hazy, and his mind was muddled. Neo! The voice snapped him out of his daze. The person grabbed his face and made him look at them. The darkness shifted, materializing into the figure of a woman. Her beautiful jet-black skin was the darkest shade of black Neo had ever seen. Her long white hair, white eyelashes, and completely white eyes contrasted her skin and held a strange charm. The woman's soft eyes, small nose, and luscious lips seemed to draw Neo in. Her clothes, seemingly made of a night sky filled with stars, hid her curvaceous physique. Neo could only describe her as immaculate. However, for some reason, she was crying. I am sorry. I am sorry. He could feel the raw grief and despair in her voice. Darkness. He moved without thinking and wiped her tears. Why are you crying? Because you always fall into danger due to me. I always held you back. I thought I was protecting you. But always, I have done nothing but hold you back. It is because of me that you cannot grow properly. I am sorry, Neo. Neo did not understand why she was crying. Okay, stop crying. Tell me everything from the start. He hugged her and patted her back to help her calm down. Despite being so close to someone whom he had met for the first time, Neo did not feel any aversion to it. Her presence was comforting. No, she shook her head. There is no time. But remember this, Neo. I will not hold you back anymore. You will finally be able to use your true powers of darkness. But it will bring pain. I was trying to protect you from that pain, but it always caused you to stay weak. Maybe if I had done this from the beginning, you would not have to put yourself through those tortures to grow stronger. Her voice grew resolute as she stared at Neo. Survive this battle, Neo, and you will be able to use your true darkness. She pushed Neo before he could ask her to clarify her words. The surroundings changed. Neo appeared next to a giant tree on an island. Confused, he looked at his hands. They were transparent. One look was enough to make him realize he was not here physically. Neo, Percival called out to him. Ha ha ha, it worked. It worked. He looked shriveled. His cheeks were hollow, and large dark circles were present under his eyes. Seeing Percival like that surprised Neo. What happened to you? No, this isn't the time to be talking about me. Percival spoke without minding his own deteriorating body. If my estimates are right, you have been revived. I pulled your consciousness here to talk with you. It's only temporary, so listen properly. Percival explained the entire situation to Neo. So Tartarus has several layers to it. Layer 1, or the outer layer, is where you are at. Layer 2 is where we met Cain. Layer 3 is the place where I saw the Tree of Nightmares. Layer 4 is the nightmare in which the conscious mind of the Grand Expedition is trapped and where they are clearing the abyss. Layer 5 is the nightmares where the subconscious mind of Grand Expedition members are caught. Did I summarize everything? Neo questioned. Yes. Bloody hell. The Tartarus had built a damn complex world. It had strict rules which prevented Tartarus from intervening directly. In exchange, taking down the entire nightmare was impossible due to the sheer complexity. The blessing of Artemis showed us the world core parts on Layer 5, and we thought by taking them down we could defeat Tartarus. But if what you said is true, then you need to take down the world core parts hidden on all layers. Goddess Artemis' blessing probably did not work properly as each layer is in a different dimension. Although her blessing can find objects hidden in other dimensions, I suppose the blessing only worked for a single dimension in this case, as Tartarus was too strong for Goddess Artemis to locate all of its hidden parts. Chapter 453, Illogical Demand. I was not looking at the bigger picture until now. After hearing Elizabeth talk about the time use of his all-shadow, Neo realized he had been too straightforward in his approach. He needed to be innovative. Brashly swinging a sword covered in death and darkness could only take him so far. Gaining enlightenment through hard work was good, but if he could add innovation to the recipe, his arsenal of abilities would grow tremendously. Neo's biggest advantage was his high mastery of several elements, and he had been very basic in their uses until now. Should we continue? Elizabeth asked. I can show you more techniques if you want. Please do. Neo erased the unnecessary thoughts and focused on the task at hand. He wanted to see the limits of the treasure given by Shadow Supreme. How much could it copy? Can you create a clone? Okay, Neo answered, unsure of the reason. A clone materialized before Neo and Elizabeth. Elizabeth controlled the space elementals to form a sphere around the clone. The space elementals released gravitons, and the space elementals at the opposite side of the sphere absorbed them. There was no uniformity within the sphere. At some places, a group of space elementals was releasing gravitons while just next to it, gravitons were being absorbed. The gravity within the sphere became chaotic. It crushed the clone and kept crushing it until it was nothing but a cube of flesh made from intent. Neo felt a shiver down his spine. Couldn't you have gone easier on it? It might not be me, but it looks like me. Why would I go easier on it? This is to help you understand the technique. If I hold back, the movements of space elementals would be weaker, and you wouldn't be able to understand the full extent of the technique. Besides, as you said, it was not you. Neo could only swallow his complaints in front of her logical answer. He created another clone. When he was about to start, Elizabeth stopped him. Don't use the limited domain on the clone. That was a domain? You can reduce it to such a small size. I can, but that's beside the point. So, why can't I use the limited domain on the clone? It looks like you. Neo was baffled. It was fine if she hurt his clone, but he couldn't do that? Where was the logic in it? Before he could say anything, Elizabeth opened her mouth. Here, take this. Elizabeth threw the bottle she picked up from the table. Neo gave her a confused stare before eventually nodding. He created a sphere of space elementals around it. Few days earlier, Tyr's room, Tyr's nightmare world. The young dragon opened his eyes with slight discomfort. He sat up and stared at his body with a confused gaze. His limbs and torso were bandaged, along with his forehead. I woke up? I thought the concept father used was eternal sleep. I did that. He turned his head toward the source of the voice. His elder sister stood there. I apologize for not being able to greet you when you came, elder sister. Don't mind it. Zara looked at Tyr with a complex gaze. He had always trained himself hard. But this time, Neo and he went beyond the limit. Tyr had been converting his life force into energy to supply energy to truth during the fight. Had the fight continued for longer, Tyr could have been in danger. If his consciousness dies here, it could put him in a coma, or at worse, kill him. Death of the mind was always a touchy topic. It was entirely possible Tyr wouldn't revive even with Tartarus' unforgiving immortality. How did you break Father's concept of eternal sleep, elder sister? Why are you asking about that? I need to prepare countermeasures for our clash that would happen in the championship. Zara thought about it and decided to be honest. I used void. Oh. I corrupted the concept that was forcing you to sleep, and it broke apart after decaying completely. I see. Tyr nodded with a thoughtful expression. Broke apart and decayed. He pulled the sheet to the side and tried to stand. The pain made him wince. His body had been damaged beyond repair, and since he burned his life force during the battle, his natural recovery had been slow. You need to wait until your life force recovers. I won't have the time to train if I wait. Tyr walked out of the room. He had been adamant about his decision, and Zara could not stop him. A thought suddenly came to him while he was on the way. Elder sister could break father's concept. Had she always been this strong? The dissonance of his father and sister's strength and personality bugged him. His eyes became hazy, and he stopped. A few seconds later, his eyes returned to normal, and he resumed the walk, forgetting the dissonance. However, the repeated logical errors he noticed had left their mark on his mind. Unknown to everyone, the world of Nightmare was changing again. Few days earlier, throne room, the room beyond the door that suddenly appeared, Tyr's nightmare world. Darkness covered the room. The presence in the room was unsettling. It wasn't just the absence of light. It was as if something evil and malevolent was hiding within the darkness. The darkness suddenly shifted. The man sitting on the throne opened his eyes. He was devilishly handsome. His hair, black as midnight, cascaded over his shoulders, and his eyes glowed the color of blood. His dragon-like hand rested casually under his chin. Present. Neo and Elizabeth's room, Tyr's nightmare world. Ha! Ha! Neo plopped on the seat. He spent days trying to copy Elizabeth's limited domain, and he still couldn't use it properly. The treasure lets me copy any element and its mastery up to expert rank. After that, I need to put in some effort. He was not discouraged. It was already shocking he could deploy mimic domains. Although he had to train a lot, he wasn't going to complain about such a useful boon. The river of time could be controlled by water users. It was a result of elemental clash. The one with higher mastery and rank would win. However, winning against Hades in an elemental clash was nigh impossible. He was amused Elizabeth could do it, even if only for a few moments. Hurry! she said, gritting her teeth. I can't stop him for long. Do whatever you can, but make him divert his attention from his river of time. Zara wasted no time and deployed her world. Void elementals started to burst forth into existence. Beelzebub, stop Ava's time, Neo shouted as he stored the corpse in his shadow space. While Ava was a pillar of Layer 2, she had not known about that. She lived her life as Cain's daughter and sacrificed herself to protect Neo. It was how the nightmare was created. No illusion knew they were fake. Neo used pseudogap and appeared behind Hades in an instant. He grabbed Hades' neck. Hades did not resist. Whatever you are doing is not going to work. We will see about that. Neo used the tyrant concept he copied during his weeks-long training with Elizabeth. His concept mastery was still low, which was why he needed physical contact with the target. The concept tyrant allowed him to interact with Hades' river of time. Are you going to help the woman to stop me from going back in time? Hades said, amused. He did not stop Neo or Zara, who was preparing a gargantuan spell. Don't worry. This will make you unable to use River of Time altogether. Neo used Aqua Nihil, his own concept of water. It erased the River of Time that was under Hades' control, and for the first time Hades was surprised. Chapter 464. Fighting the God of Death. Hades. That's a rather unique worldview of water, he said. A wave of force burst out from his body. It struck Neo and flung him back. Before Hades could recreate the River of Time, Zara was upon him. She had fully transformed into her Void Dragon form. The Void Elementals corrupted Hades' River of Time. A slight annoyance appeared on Hades' face. He could not rewind time with Zara's Void and Elizabeth's Tyrant actively attacking him. Even if he found a moment to do so, Neo would disturb him. Fine. I will deal with you lot first. A wave of pure death exploded from Hades' outstretched hand. The energy surged forward and consumed everything in its path. Neo retaliated. He used Null Hour and erased the red lightning of Hades before it could reach Elizabeth and Zara. But Hades was already on the move. Whips of shadows writhed beneath him, propelling him forward at terrifying speed. A lance of death condensed into physical form materialized in his grasp. His figure blurred as he dodged Zara's attacks and aimed at Elizabeth. Elizabeth stepped back and summoned a miniature black hole in Hades' path. Gravity folded inward, warping space. Hades stepped through the black hole. His robe tore the attack apart as if it was made of paper. The lance shot towards her heart. But Elizabeth's retaliation had brought enough time. Neo's sword flashed. It zipped across space and intercepted Hades' lance with an earth-shattering explosion. The sheer force of the clash sent tremors through the ground, splitting the battlefield apart. Ha, you have lived for tens of thousands of years, and this meager strength is what you have to show for it? It pains my heart to see my son being such a disappointment. Hades' aura exploded. Neo's sword was pushed back, and Hades seized the opportunity. His lance tore a hole open in Elizabeth's neck, and then time reversed. Elizabeth gasped. The pain was gone. She had rewound time by 3 seconds. With the help of Tyrant supporting her River of Time, she could turn back time instantly, unlike Hades, but she felt the strain. 33 regressions to save Neo, and another one now. Even if she was a genius, she couldn't do this too many times. Her time elementals were beginning to turn too chaotic to control. Zara seized the opportunity. Her void element world surged forward. It corrupted the death and darkness itself. Hades staggered for the first time as the red lightning turned chaotic and he lost control over it. The corrupted death, now chaos, attacked him. He summoned a wall of darkness to block the attack. Zara transformed. Her body expanded, twisting into a form that defied logic. A true void dragon, a cosmic horror of impossible shapes and angles, a figure far more terrifying than what she had shown Neo and Elizabeth before. Her presence warped reality, making it difficult to perceive where she truly was. She lunged, her claws rending through space itself, aiming straight for Hades. Is this the best you have? He raised his hand. Shadow chains lashed out and anchored Zara midair. With a single motion, he devoured the corruption away from his death and darkness, negating her power. Then he threw her to the ground with a force that cracked the nightmare world. Zara roared in pain, her eldritch form trembling as she struggled to rise. "Your void is strong," Hades said, walking toward her, his death aura condensing further. "But it's tame. That is not how void is supposed to be. It isn't friendly or controllable. Let it consume everything." Elizabeth lunged from above. Her blood element condensed into a spear. Hades turned, and Neo appeared behind him like a ghost. Divine swordsmanship modified seventh form, Tenreisen Kuroshi. Neo's sword slashed down, combining seventh fourth with death essence. Hades barely dodged, but the tip of the sword grazed his shoulder, and Hades bled. His expression twisted into something unreadable. Then, with an explosion of dark energy, he banished all light from the battlefield. Sanctuary of darkness. A subdimension of pure darkness engulfed everything. Sound vanished. Sight failed. Neo's intense senses stopped working. He suddenly felt a death spear slice past his ribs. His body acted on reflex and barely dodged in time. Divine swordsmanship modified 8 form, Kamishin Shigami. He struck back with modified form, created by combining the 8 form with death essence, but his blade met nothing. Elizabeth's spear holding hand was blown away before she could turn back time to when Hades had to deploy his sanctuary. She swiftly retaliated with a emotionless face. Blood element empowered her hand. Her uppercut struck true. The feedback told her she had hit Hades' chin. Do you not fear death?" The voice was followed with splashing of blood. Hades' aura of death grew. However, Elizabeth seemed unaffected. Even she was surprised. The death god's aura was not weak. Then why was she unaffected? Why? Before her thoughts completed, Neo used Null Hour to erase a portion of the Sanctuary of Darkness. "Hey, you fucking asshole!" Hades froze. He turned back to Neo, not even trying to repair the sanctuary. "What did you say just now?" "I said drop the act, you motherfucking bitch." Death essence flared around Neo's sword. He glanced at injured Elizabeth and Zara before staring back at Hades. "Little shit. I really thought Dad had gone senile." Neo gritted his teeth. "Fuck. I feel stupid for even thinking you were Dad. Are you using crass words against your father?" "Father my ass. You are not even a god, bitch. If you are one, go ahead and deploy your world. I'm waiting for it." Neo pointed at Elizabeth. "Your attack damage on her is reduced. That's because she is my avatar, and I have Dad's bloodline, the bloodline of your god, you fucking Tartarus fraud bitch ass. Anyway, why the fuck do you have Dad's intent? Shit almost made me think you were Dad." While Neo was trash-talking, he brought enough time for Elizabeth to heal herself. Hades, or rather Tartarus, did not look happy. He stared at Neo expressionlessly, but the fury burning behind his gaze was all too clear to Neo. He moved without warning. Darkness coalesced into a jagged spear in his grip, pulsating with concentrated death. He lunged, his form blurring like a shadow twisting through space. However, Neo saw the move before it happened. His foresights suddenly activated for the first time. He saw Tartarus' spear thrusting forward, piercing his heart. A moment later, reality caught up with the vision. The same attack came. Neo's body was already moving before his mind fully registered it. The spear grazed his ribs. Before he could recover, Tartarus was attacked him again. Shadows writhed like vipers beneath him. They formed chains that shot toward Neo's limbs. Neo's foresight activated again, and he saw his arms bound, the spear impaling his throat. He reacted. His blade flashed, the death essence carved through the oncoming chains. He ducked low, rolling to the side, but Tartarus adjusted mid-strike, shifting the trajectory of his spear. The tip grazed Neo's cheek, leaving behind a burning trail of death. Tartarus' spear attacks connected from one move to another. It was like a dance of an enraged death god. Neo felt his bones trembles, and his muscles snap each time he blocked. He clashed hundreds of times with Tartarus in a split second, too fast for Elizabeth to interfere in their battle. His sword wove intricate arcs. Zara finally managed to break her chains. She tried to intervene, but a wall of darkness erupted around her and Elizabeth, pushing them back. The wall of darkness formed a dome and began to devour them. Neo's mind raced. Future sight was helping wonders, but it had a limit. Besides, the skill activated randomly. It was a luck-based gotcha. In other words, Percival was supporting Neo and giving him good fortune, which was activating the foresight. I doubt Percival can keep giving me endless luck. He probably gave it at important moments where he saw me die. Sigh, need my help. Neo's eyes widened. He recognized the voice. Sphinx? What are you doing? I'm not Sphinx. I'm Sphinx's blessing. By now you should know a blessing carries its user's intent, which can talk to you. How can you help? Neo did not waste time on asking why Sphinx was helping him, or what did it want in return. Remember how Artemis overclocked her blessing to strengthen it? I can do the same. You will be able to see multiple future possibilities instead of just one. That's useless. Neo stopped speaking. He realized how incredibly powerful would the blessing become if it was strengthened. There is a problem though. Seeing multiple future is impossible since multiple futures do not exist. So I will need to use my own trait to use base present timeline and combine it with my trait to predict English. What I'm doing is creating timelines, short timelines that will end after a few seconds, and I will use them to predict future. Creating literal timeline need titanic amount of energy. You might not even be able to sustain it with your current energy reserves. Do it. Neo canceled all of his blessing. He diverted his world energy from his core, and infinite mana towards Sphinx's blessing. He felt weak and nauseous, but this was fine. Right now, he needed a trump card, even if it made him a glass cannon. Talked enough, Tartarus said. Use this chance to realize that you can plan everything, try everything, but you will lose. Chapter 465. Sphinx's Blessing plus All Shadow. Tartarus's figure turned into a blur that stretched towards Neo. His lance of death aimed at his skull. Neo's vision blurred. No, it expanded. In the span of an instant, he saw 3 futures. 2 ended with his body torn apart and his soul disintegrated. But there was one, just one, where he survived. Neo seized it. He used All Shadow to enter that future. Timelines twisted and time elementals went out of control. Neo felt a great amount of resistance ripping his body apart. He throttled his All Shadow to full power and continued to activate it. The short timeline created by his blessing merged into the main timeline and overrode it. The scene around Neo changed abruptly. A large scar ran over his abdomen. It had failed to leave a deep wound. What was that? Tartarus frowned and looked at his hands. What did you do? Neo didn't respond. He was having a hard time standing straight, and a pounding headache continued to ram into his head. The energy within his blood vessels was exhausted. It made him feel as if acid was flowing in his veins. His muscles screamed, his lungs burned, and he had lost half of his energy reserves. World energy. Energy for his demigod core. Infinite mana from the moon. And still it wasn't enough. He burned his will to create a homogeneous amount of world energy again. Infinite mana flooded into his reserves. But it was a slow process. Generating world energy took time, and while the moon's mana was theoretically infinite, he could only receive a fixed amount of it per second. Tartarus pressed the assault. Shadows erupted from the ground, taking the form of razors that slashed at Neo from all angles. He saw the outcomes again. Every path led to his dismemberment. Except one. Neo used All Shadow. The short timeline merged into the main timeline, and the world around Neo changed instantly. His breath came ragged. His intent vision was barely a few meters in diameters. He had lost his hand. The blessings churned, trying to regenerate his arm, but there was no energy to use. I see. So that is what you are doing, Tartarus said. Neo's danger sense screamed. He barely caught sight of Tartarus' palm opening before a sphere of condensed death and darkness detonated at point-blank range. There was no time to react. No futures to choose. The explosion consumed him. Pain unlike anything he had felt before ripped through his body. His skin cracked, his bones shattered. His soul trembled on the brink of collapse. But he remained standing. He had to. He refused to fall there. A deafening crack split through the battlefield. The dome of darkness imprisoning Zara and Elizabeth shattered. Tartarus' attention flickered toward it. Neo saw the futures again. The sight, "No, don't come out." Tartarus moved before Neo could stop him. He reached out. His death fused into Zara's void, and the two elements twisted into something different. Chaos. Tartarus coalesced the chaos into a spear of swirling destruction. He hurled it straight at Elizabeth. All of it happened in an instant. Elizabeth's eyes widened. She raised her hand to reverse time, but the chaos infected her element. Her power failed. The spear pierced her chest. Chaos exploded within her body, and it consumed her. Her body began to disintegrate, erased from existence itself. Elizabeth! Neo's scream tore through the battlefield. Elizabeth coughed blood. Instead of trying to reverse time again, she looked at him with pained, yet serene eyes. She smiled and opened her mouth to speak. But before words could come out, she faded away. Neo froze for a moment before his battle instincts kicked in. He used shadow to mimic the river of time and rewind time. However, he lacked the energy to do that. His nerves burned, and he felt like thousands of sizzling needles were being stabbed into the pores of his skin. He began to devour himself to sustain the mimicked river of time, and when he was successful, the mimicked time elementals refused to help him. He forced his thoughts into their mind and bent their will, but each moment he wasted meant he had to use more energy to go back in time. Energy he didn't have. Zara moved. Before Tartarus could press the advantage, Zara released her world within the darkness sanctuary and detonated it. A colossal explosion of void erupted from her, ripping through the sanctuary of darkness. Reality shattered, and the nightmare world flickered back into view, cracked and damaged. Tartarus clicked his tongue, unfazed by the destruction. His darkness surged forward. Zara didn't hesitate. She burned her core. Void flared violently, and a brilliant abyss consumed her form. She was no longer holding back or conserving energy. A portion of the nightmare world, already damaged from previous battles, was obliterated in an instant. An opening. She turned to Neo. Her hand transformed into a giant deformed mass of flesh. It hit Neo like a truck and threw him out of the nightmare world through the opening. Neo tumbled through the endless abyss. The tiny black hole had cracked, and it revealed Tyr's nightmare world within it. "Don't worry about Elizabeth and me. We are witches. We will reincarnate." Zara's voice echoed in his mind. "So focus on protecting yourself." The cracks in the nightmare world began to repair on their own. The last thing Neo saw was Tartarus' darkness swell and consume half of Zara's body in a single bite. Then nothing. Neo was gone. Tartarus stood alone. His gaze was fixed on the cracks in the nightmare world through which Neo had escaped. For the first time, he scowled. He escaped. He raised his hand and manifested his river of time. Just then, the remaining half of Zara's corpse began to release a sizzling noise. It transformed into a deformed mass of flesh that defied logic. Reality warped around it, and just looking at it would kill a low-ranked being. The deformed mass of flesh grew in size endlessly. The void emanating from the corpse distorted the river of time and rendered him unable to go back. Tartarus' lips twisted. The longer he took, the more difficult it would be to go back. "Fine, you won this time." He let go of his river of time and focused on stopping the endless deformed mass of flesh from destroying Tyr's nightmare world, and this Tartarus body, one of the pillars, along with it. Chapter 466. Pain and Rage. Neo's consciousness stirred. His eyes snapped open as a sharp pain throbbed in every fiber of his body. His breath came ragged and shallow. His intent vision blurred as he took in his surroundings. He was lying on rough, uneven stone. The scent of damp earth and something faintly metallic filled his nostrils. A cavern. A massive one. The jagged and uneven ceiling loomed hundreds of meters above. faint bioluminescent fungi clinging to its surface. Where am I? A high-pitched and inhuman shriek interrupted his thoughts. Neo focused on his senses, and he saw it. A creature surged toward him with 8 legs skittering across the stone. Its chitin and sinew came together into a grotesque blend. Its body was covered in thick, segmented armor, dark and glossy, like polished obsidian. 8 crimson eyes glowed with eerie intelligence, locked onto him. Its mandibles twitched, clicking together as if tasting the air, and venom dripped from the curved fangs protruding from its grotesque maw. Neo gritted his teeth and tried to push himself up. His arms trembled, his legs buckled. He collapsed back onto the cold stone. His body was broken. The battle against Tartarus had pushed him beyond his limits. He had burned every last shred of his energy, even the condensed world energy that served as the foundation of his physical form. His bones, his organs, his blood, everything was formed from world energy, and now most of it was gone. He was lucky his body hadn't shattered entirely, but he could not fight in his current condition. The monster was closing in. Neo clenched his fists. He could just stay down. Let the beast tear into him. Let it be satisfied and leave whatever remained of him alone. It would be easy. He could revive after that. He was immortal, but the cold, seething rage within him refused to let him. Tartarus. He hated that name. He hated himself more. His weakness, his failure. He lost her because he was weak. The overwhelming fury bubbled inside his skull, screaming to be released. He needed something to kill. Pain exploded in his arms as he pushed himself up again. Cracks splintered across his skin like shattered porcelain. Pain exploded in his mind, but he forced his body to move. The spider lunged. Its monstrous limbs blurred through the air. Divine swordsmanship 8th stance. Kami no Shinpan. The formless blade tore through the beast's chitinous hide with a clean, merciless cut. Blood spurted in an arc as the creature's body split in two, and its halves collapsed lifelessly onto the ground. Neo exhaled sharply. The pain was unbearable, but he barely acknowledged it. His anger kept him moving. Just as he had sensed, the cavern had more of them. The monster's brethren emerged from the shadows. Some of these ones were larger, 5 times the first one's size, and stronger. Their armored bodies glowed with faint red veins pulsing beneath the surface, as if molten lava flowed through them. Their mandibles dripped with something thick and corrosive, hissing as it ate into the stone beneath them. Their limbs were sharper and longer. Neo was not focused on them. His mind kept replaying the scene in his mind. Her smile, her serene eyes, and her last words. Words she had tried to say, but could not. Now they were lost forever. The nearest monster lunged at him. He sidestepped and brought his sword in a brutal arc. His strike met resistance. This one's exoskeleton was thicker. His blade bit into it but didn't cleave through immediately. With a snarl, he forced more strength into the cut, driving his sword through muscle and bone. The spider screeched as its body collapsed. But another was already upon him. A leg the size of a spear slammed into his side. Bones cracked. Neo stumbled, barely managing to twist his body to avoid a second strike. His body screamed in protest, but he didn't stop moving. One came from behind. He pivoted, twisting his blade in a reverse grip and driving it backward. A screech of agony erupted as he found his mark, piercing one of the monster's glowing eyes. Another leapt from above. He rolled forward, barely avoiding being crushed. His foot slipped on the slick stone, but he steadied himself just in time to meet the next one's charge. His sword danced through the air, cutting through chitin, severing limbs, carving through flesh. His body fractured further, unable to sustain the strain. His skin split like a shattered mask, revealing raw, exposed flesh beneath. Every movement sent fresh agony tearing through him. He needed the pain. It helped him ignore his thoughts. Why was it always him who survived? Why did he had to watch his loved ones die every time? Neo did not try to use mimicked river of time. Too much time had passed, and time elementals wouldn't let him return. They disliked him after he led Daniel, their loved one, astray, And now, he had committed a far worse felony. He forced an artificial timeline to become real. Not once, but twice. A searing pain shot through his head. He pulled the monster's leg out from his chest and returned the favor. Another beast fell. Then another. Their bodies piled around him, and thick blood pooled beneath his feet. The stench of death filled the cavern. But they kept coming. His movements slowed. His breath came ragged. His arms trembled from sheer exhaustion. And still he fought. Hours passed before he finally fell. But no monster used the opening. They were not alive to do that. All of them were dead. Neo lay there between the mountains of corpses. He bit his lips and covered his eyes. The absence of pain and battle forced his thoughts to move. How was he going to find her reincarnated self in the endless cosmos? What if she had reincarnated into the past? He could never find her if that was to happen. What if he never met her again? The thought chilled his heart. His nails dug into his palm. He shouldn't have proposed to her. He should have kept his heart closed and acted oblivious to his emotions. Maybe then, he wouldn't feel broken after witnessing her death. A hollow emptiness settled on his face. What kind of man was he? He couldn't even protect the woman he loved. His thoughts came to a freezing halt. Ouroboros. The world-time spell etched on his back. Chapter 467. Body Doubles? Zone 08, Base Camp of Grand Expedition. Tyr opened his eyes with a snap. His breath came in short, sharp bursts. His body felt clammy, and his muscles were tense, as if he had just awakened from a nightmare too vivid to be anything but real. He swallowed hard. His mind raced through the events that had just unfolded within his dream, or was it something else? He recalled seeing Neo, Ava, Zara, and a woman who looked strikingly like Julie de Beaufort. The memory was crystal clear, not the fragmented like a dream. Everything is a nightmare? The thought sent a wave of fury through him. He clenched his fists, feeling the heat rise in his veins. He remembered it all. Neo battling his weaker past self, Zara speaking to him about the nightmare world, and the snippets of truth exchanged between them. But more than anything, he recalled the door and the presence behind it. The sickening feeling it exuded, like something incomprehensibly vast staring back at him from beyond reality itself. Tyr's head snapped toward his tense entrance as the fabric parted. A woman with golden hair and a blindfold stepped inside, flanked by her entourage. Celestia, leader of the Hope Dragon clan. Her presence was always poised, and her expressions unreadable. "What is it?" Tyr asked, his voice harsher than intended. Celestia did not react to his tone. Someone entered the second zone from outside. Judging by the responses, it is Neo Hargraves, the man Great Disaster Kane brought with him. At her words, Vlad, who sat across from Tyr, narrowed his eyes. "Neo Hargraves?" he questioned. "I saw him among the Grand Expedition Army this morning when we were clearing Zone 7. How did he suddenly appear in Zone 2, which is 2 floors above us?" "We are still investigating," Celestia answered evenly. Tyr remained silent. Neo and Zara were here in the Abyss of Nightmare along with the Grand Expedition. Then, who had he seen in his dreams? "The ones with us are fake." He stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the ground as the air in the tent grew thick with tension. The others exchanged uncertain glances, waiting for his next words. "The Grand Expedition will halt its progress immediately," Tyr commanded. "We will set up defenses and wait for my further orders." A ripple of shock passed through the gathered figures. The expedition was at a crucial juncture. They were about to reach the Zone 09, where the Finally Protector was present. Halting progress now was unheard of. Only Celestia and Vlad remained impassive, waiting for him to continue, sensing there was more to his decision. "Detain Neo Hargraves and Zara de Beaufort," Tyr said, his voice like iron. "I suspect the ones with us are not who they claim to be." The tent fell into stunned silence. Celestia tilted her head slightly, unreadable as always. Vlad, however, looked skeptical. "Do you have proof?" Celestia asked at last. "I have no concrete proof," he admitted. But I do have an idea of what's going on, and why there are two Neo-Hargraves. Give me some time to confirm my theory. Celestia remained silent for a moment, then nodded slightly. Vlad frowned. Tyr, you know what you're suggesting, don't you? If you're wrong. I'm not wrong. Tyr's voice cut through the air like a blade. I will stake my life on this. Silence appeared. It seemed to stretch for minutes. Finally, Vlad sighed and leaned back, running a hand through his dark red hair. Fine. If we're detaining them, we need to be careful. If they're fakes, they could be dangerous. They will be, Celestia said. If they are not who they claim to be, then we are facing something beyond our current understanding. Keep the news hidden from them, and act like everything is normal. I will go to Zone 2 and meet Neo-Hargraves there to confirm my theory. Until then, the grand expedition is not to proceed. The gathered leaders and the other members exchanged glances. Vlad's arms remained crossed over his broad chest as he regarded Tyr with a piercing gaze. You're planning to use the teleporters we set up while descending, aren't you? Yes, with them. I'll reach Zone 2 within a day or two. Celestia will go with you. Vlad's tone left no room for argument. You'll need her if you want to locate him quickly. What about Zara? Tyr asked. If she really turns out to be a fake, it could create problems. With only you here, I can handle her even if she turns rogue. There was no arrogance in his words, just cold certainty. Tyr held his gaze for a moment before nodding. Very well. Without wasting another word, he turned and strode toward the exit. Celestia followed without a sound. Outside, the camp bustled with activity. Soldiers and expedition members moved around, completely unaware of the truth of the nightmare world. The grand expedition had spent months carving a path through the abyss of nightmare, advancing through its treacherous zones with the singular goal of reaching the bottom. But now Tyr was pulling the brakes. The teleportation platform stood at the edge of the encampment. It had countless magic circles compressed within it that allowed it to traverse between the dimensional wall separating the zones. Tyr and Celestia stepped onto it, and the moment the operator activated the spell, the world around them blurred. The next moment, they were gone. Zone 02. The world time spell could rewind time by 50 years. Of course, it had its limitations. Even Daniel, the greatest time mage, had never managed to reach the full limit of the spell. Neo doubted he could do the same. But that wasn't a problem. He didn't need 50 years. A few hours would be enough. If he could push further back, even better. He took a deep breath and pushed his scattered thoughts aside. Energy. That was his first priority. His body was barely holding together, and his world energy was trickling through the cracks on his soul and body like a drying river. He had been slowly using infinite mana to knit together his shattered body, but it wasn't enough. His seed of existence was still fractured. It had to be repaired first. Without hesitation, Neo diverted all his remaining energy toward his seed of existence. Pain rippled through him as the cracks in his soul resisted his attempts to mend them. His breath grew ragged, and sweat beaded on his brow. He endured the pain with an expressionless face. Only a second had passed since he began healing himself when his instincts screamed in warning. A sudden shift in the air was followed by blur of movement. The severed spider leg shot toward him like a spear. His body was too weak to dodge. With a sickening crunch, the jagged limb pierced through his chest. Blood spurted from the wound, and a choking cough racked his body. Pain flared like wildfire, but his expression remained impassive. He pressed his palm against the gaping hole in his torso, while his fingers trembled from the strain. The corpses of the spider monsters twitched. Then they moved. Chapter 468. Breaking apart. One by one, the fallen monsters began to rise. Their grotesque forms shifted with unnatural vigor. Their 8 legs cracked back into place, and their hollow eyes gleamed with renewed malice. Neo gritted his teeth. He stopped healing himself and abandoned his attempt to repair his seed of existence. He had no choice but to divert all his remaining power into manifesting death essence. A dark mist began to coil around his blade, twisting like ethereal serpents. The monsters lunged, and Neo responded in kind. His broken body screamed in protest, but he did not falter. Divine swordsmanship fourth form, Ryu no Mai. He weaved between their attacks. His movements were smooth and precise. It looked as if he was dancing. His blade carved through their twisted forms. Each swing was slow, far too slow compared to his peak, but his precision remained unmatched. Even with his body in ruins, his techniques did not weaken. Blood splattered. Limbs fell. The stench of death thickened. The monsters did not stop. They kept coming. Neo fought without hesitation, but he knew his body would not last. So he did what he had to do. He devoured them. As soon as he consumed the first monster, an unimaginable chaos erupted in his mind. It was as if a second consciousness had been forced into his skull. His thoughts became tangled in a web of hunger, rage, and primal instinct. The personality of the spider monster surged forward, clawing at his sanity. His vision distorted. He felt the urge to move on 8 legs, to scuttle into the shadows, to hunt, to feed. What is this? Neo grunted, clutching his skull. He had consumed minds before. Darkness brought back a portion of the original's essence when he devoured them. The echoes of their thoughts still haunted him. This time, he wasn't just hearing their voices. He was becoming them. Memories that were not his flooded his mind. He saw flashes of an underground realm, the home of these creatures. He saw darkness swallowing their world, turning them into pitiful immortal existences. Pain lanced through his skull. He staggered. He didn't see the next attack coming. The monsters swarmed him. Their grotesque limbs pinned him down. Razor-sharp mandibles tore into his flesh. He felt his body being eaten alive. Neo's instinct screamed. His body, honed by years of combat, tried to retaliate, but it was breaking apart, crumbling like fractured porcelain. His strength was failing him, and yet his thoughts continued to spiral into madness. Hunger, rage. He wanted to kill, to consume, to become stronger. No, Neo muttered. Those aren't my thoughts. The memories of the spider monsters twisted around his own, trying to merge with him and to overwrite him. This is far from enough to trouble me. Neos will churned. Get the fuck out. You bitches. With a final surge of will, he seized control of the invading thoughts. The voices in his head shrieked and resisted, but he crushed them beneath his indomitable will. His darkness did not consume him. He consumed it, devouring the monster broth a powerful surge of energy. His shattered limbs reformed. His flesh knitted together at an accelerated pace. Strength returned to his muscles, and he could finally move without the fear of breaking down. The monsters sensed the shift. They hesitated. Neo lifted his sword. Divine swordsmanship 8th stance. Kami no Shinpan. A single slash. A wave of destruction followed. The ground split apart, and an explosion of force erupted outward. The nearest monsters were obliterated in an instant. Their bodies were torn asunder by the overwhelming might of the attack. Neo exhaled slowly. He had devoured the monster's memories, its experiences, its knowledge. This was true darkness. True darkness devoured everything. It was not bound by luck or chance. It did not merely take fragments of memories or stats. It consumed entirely. True darkness became what it devoured. Neo clenched his fists. A giant wave of darkness erupted from his body. It surged outward like an endless sea. The malevolent energy devoured the spider-like monsters in a single gulp. Their chitinous limbs flailed, and their twisted screeches filled the cavern. They clawed at the ground, at each other, even at their own flesh to resist. The monsters tried to resist the pull of darkness. Neo's exhaustion had reached its peak. He did not have time for another prolonged battle. His world energy reserves were running dangerously low. His body was teetering on the verge of collapse. Without hesitation, he reached out and consumed his own left arm. A sharp, searing pain tore through him as his flesh and bone vanished, and a torrent of power flooded him in return. The cavern trembled as he unleashed the energy. A storm of red lightning bolts, each larger than mountains, burst out from his body. The impact was catastrophic. The air split apart with a deafening crack as the lightning struck, incinerating everything in its path. The creatures shrieked. Their bodies convulsed as the sheer magnitude of the attack tore through their defenses. Smoke and the acrid scent of burning flesh filled the cavern. Silence followed. Their resistance was crushed, and true darkness devoured them with ease. Tens of thousands of memories burst forth into Neo's mind. He staggered back. His mind was overtaken by confusion and chaos. His nails dug into his skin as if trying to claw his own face apart. His head felt like it was splitting open from the inside. He could see it all. Tens of thousands of monsters. Their centuries of hunting, of consuming, of dying and reviving. The hunger, the rage, the endless cycle of devouring and being devoured. His hands pulled at his hair. He couldn't breathe. The sheer mass of personalities was tearing his sense of self apart. Neo had done this on purpose. He could feel his mind breaking apart and shattering like fragile glass. His thoughts weren't his own anymore. Voices, urges, instincts that didn't belong to him roared within him. He could feel their memories, their desires, their pain as if they were his own. His mind was splitting at the seams. He collapsed to his knees with ragged breathing. His mind was in tatters, but he didn't care. This was necessary. The only way he could recover. His body, no longer being attacked, would mend itself in peace while his mind bore the brunt of the madness. Even if he went insane. Even if he lost himself in the process. He was okay with it, because once he regained his strength, he could use the Ouroboros. He was prepared to touch the madness, if it helped him meet her a minute faster. His vision blurred, flickering between reality and the illusions forced upon him by the stolen memories. He clenched his teeth until blood dripped from his lips. His identity, his existence, his everything. It was all being ripped apart. But Neo was not someone who broke easily. With a hoarse breath, he forced his trembling hands together and gritted his teeth. If this was the cost, then so be it. He would endure it. He always had. His mind was screaming. His soul was fraying. But his body was recovering. Chapter 469, Punishment. Neo clenched his fists. His nails scraped against the cold, hard stones, breaking under the pressure. The madness burning within him threatened to tear him apart. Hydraulic motion mastery plus 50. Combat experience against species. Tarantula plus 30. Combat experience against species. Arachne plus 25. Combat experience against species. Venomfang spider plus 35. Combat experience against species. Phantom web spider plus 20. Combat experience against species. Abyssal weaver plus 40. Combat experience against species. Shadowfang widow plus 30. Combat experience against species. Bloodfang weaver plus 25. Combat experience against species. Nightmare silk spider plus 35. Combat experience against species. Bone carver arachnid plus 40. Web weaving techniques plus 50. Advanced silk manipulation plus 60. Traplaying strategy plus 45. Ambush tactics from high ground plus 40. Stealth movement in web terrain plus 35. Detection of vibrations through webs plus 45. Vibration-based awareness plus 50. Venom knowledge, paralytic, corrosive, neurotoxic, hallucinogenic, acidic, blood coagulating, plus 70. Predatory patience plus 40. Multi-limb coordination plus 30. Dark vision knowledge plus 25. Echolocation through web threads plus 40. Camouflage in darkness plus 20. Camouflage in webbing plus 30. Spider monster social structures and hierarchies plus 15. Nest construction and optimization plus 35. Hunting in enclosed spaces plus 30. Resistance to fear of spiders. Mental adaptation plus 50. Micro-movement and breath detection plus 35. Tolerance to toxins plus 40. Understanding of spider-based curses plus 25. Knowledge of silk-based rituals plus 30. Toxic resistance adaptation plus 50. Prey restriction tactics plus 45. Understanding of spider-based evolutionary traits plus 35. Web-based territory control plus 40. Parasitic egg-laying detection plus 30. Stealth in confined spaces plus 35. Prey luring strategies plus 50. Aerial hunting techniques plus 30. Underground web construction plus 40. Adaptive web weaving, environmental shift response plus 50. Understanding of silk-based barriers plus 35. Arachnid-based fear induction plus 30. Invisibility in shadowed webs plus 40. Energy plus 10,000. Knowledge was being forcefully ingrained into his brain. True darkness delivered everything from the tens of thousands of monsters he had devoured. Their memories, instincts, combat techniques, and experiences surged through his mind like an unstoppable tide. Fortunately, these monsters were part of a nightmare, not reality. Otherwise, Neo would have gained physical attributes, perhaps even monstrous mutations, and he wasn't sure if his body could have withstood such a transformation while his mind was already on the verge of breaking apart. If he had truly absorbed everything, he might not have even been able to resist for a moment. Yet, even as his body healed, he barely had a moment to breathe. Before he could begin gathering energy into the Ouroboros, his senses flared with alarm. His intense senses had unconsciously adapted, optimizing themselves to detect even the slightest vibrations along with ambient energy vibrations, much like the spider monsters he had consumed. The cave ceiling shattered. From above, a gigantic maw descended, large enough to swallow the moon in one bite. Ha ha ha! Such pure energy. And from a weak being like this at that. I can take this easily. Neo barely had time to register the monster's presence before it attacked. It was massive, so much so that he could only see its gaping mouth, not the rest of its body. There was no way to dodge in time. Still, he moved. The knowledge from his absorbed memories ignited within him. Hydraulic motion, a movement technique spider monsters naturally mastered. A method of bursting energy within the muscles to produce explosive and precise movements. Neo used hydraulic motion as if he had used it throughout his life. He blurred, vanishing from where he stood, reappearing thousands of meters away in a split second. His body screamed in protest. Muscles tore, bones strained under the unnatural acceleration. He had failed to account the purity of his energy was much higher than the energy the monsters had, which in result made his hydraulic motion almost reach the level of instantaneous teleportation. The gargantuan maw snapped shut where he had been, pulverizing the cave floor. Don't dodge, vermin. Let me eat you peacefully. You should be honored that the great I am hoping to feast on you. A massive claw, larger than a mountain range, shot down from the ceiling. Neo's sudden, extreme movements had already caused his muscles to burst. He couldn't dodge. The claw crashed down and engulfed him entirely. The earth trembled. Silence reigned for a moment. Then, a deep rumble came from above. Your durability is not half bad, vermin. The monster lifted its claw, revealing Neo's crushed, broken body. Blood pooled around him and his breath was weak. Yet, even in this battered state, he never stopped generation energy. The monster narrowed its eyes. What are you trying to do, vermin? Neo didn't answer. Ouroboros was full. He activated it. A powerful force seized him like a great river surging forward, carrying him along at an unstoppable speed. The river of time roared. The currents were furious, raging as if in defiance of his will. Neo struggled against them, pushing forward, swimming upward, trying to reach his intended destination. Time eroded everything. The flow of time itself lashed against him and threatened to drown him. Eternal resisted the erosion, shielding him, but there was only so much it could do. He swam faster, fighting against the currents. Too much time passed. A year, 10 years. He didn't know anymore, but he continued, only stopping when his consowness slipped through his fingers and exhaustion claimed him. Elizabeth searched through the castle. Neo had won against Tyr, but she had noticed the hollowness in his expression. Something wasn't right. She had come to cheer him up. She hesitated, recalling the advice Zara had given her before sending her to search for Neo. According to Zara, it would definitely cheer up Neo. Elizabeth shook her head, pushing those thoughts aside. While she did want to take a step forward in her relationship with him, his well-being was more important at the moment. Finally, she reached the last room. It was the only place she hadn't checked. I hope he hasn't gone inside his shadow space, she thought. Searching for him there would be difficult. She opened the door. The isolation around the room dissipated, and she immediately sensed his presence. Neo. Her words were cut off by the sharp sound of glass shattering. Chapter 470. Punishment 2. She stepped forward swiftly. The scene before her froze her in place. Empty alcohol bottles littered the floor. The pungent smell of alcohol filled the air. Neo was collapsed on the ground. Her breath hitched. He was drenched in sweat, and his chest rose and fell in ragged breaths. More alarming, cracks covered his entire body, as if he were breaking apart. Neo. She knelt beside him, reaching out, only for him to suddenly pull her into a tight embrace. "What are you doing?" "I'm sorry." His voice trembled. "I couldn't protect you." Her breath caught. She could feel the faint tremors in his limbs. He's regressed, she realized. But why is he like this? He has almost no energy in his body. Did he come back to the past without fully recovering? What forced him to be in so much hurry? She didn't resist. Instead, she let him hold her. "It's okay," she said, trying to sound gentle. But not being used to the tone, she was quite awkward. "You're back. We can solve everything now." Neo suddenly stiffened. A powerful shift in the ambient energy sent sharp vibrations through the air, which he sensed through his new improved senses. Something was coming. Fast. A spear shot through the wall like a meteor. Neo moved on instinct, pulling Elizabeth aside. The spear twisted midair and shot straight through her skull. Neo's mind blanked. Elizabeth's body went limp in his arms. Blood sprayed across his face, hot and thick. "Neo, are you okay?" Two voices burst into the room. Ava and Elizabeth. Neo turned, still in shock. They froze at the sight before them. Neo's aura flared. The headache returned with full force. Embracing Elizabeth had helped him calm down, but not anymore. He no longer tried to calm the twisted, warped instincts of the tens of thousands of spider monsters he had consumed. He let them become one with him. "Come out." His voice was quiet, but the command carried through the air like a thunderclap. "If you wish so," a voice responded, smooth yet devoid of warmth. A moment later, Ava's body exploded. Blood and viscera splattered across the room. Then the shadows in the room shifted unnaturally. They twisted and coalesced into a form, Tartarus. His gaze lingered on Ava's remains for a brief moment before he shook his head. She shouldn't have tried to go back if she wanted to live. Neo didn't flinch, despite the uncontrolled rage burning within him, and the soul-splitting headache threatening to make him go insane. His expression remained cold, indifferent. He made no indication that he was going to attack. "Why did you kill her?" Neo asked, his voice eerily detached. "She was one of the pillars. Punishing you is more important." Tartarus' gaze shifted to Elizabeth's lifeless corpse in Neo's arms. A slow smirk curled his lips. "And I just found the perfect way to do so." Neo's grip on Elizabeth tightened. "I see," he muttered. "How are you able to remember the past timeline?" "I am the one who turned back. I'm not obliged to answer your questions." Tartarus interrupted him, then snapped his fingers. The world twisted, and time reversed. "It's okay," Elizabeth said. "You're back. We can solve everything now." Neo's arms were still wrapped around her. The blood from her corpse that had stained his hands mere seconds ago was gone. He turned back time by a few minutes? But why? Before Neo could finish processing what had happened, a spear ripped through the air, piercing straight through Elizabeth's skull. Blood splattered across his face, and fragments of bone and brain matter dripped onto his shoulder. Her body went limp. The warmth in his arms was replaced with cold. And then, snap, time reversed again. "It's okay," Elizabeth said again, looking up at him with soft eyes, unaware that she had just died, unaware of what was about to happen. Neo's fingers twitched. His mind was sharp, hyper-aware, and the memories of both instances overlapped within him. Tartarus was watching. He had not moved, but Neo knew he was looking at him. "How many times are you going to do this?" Neo asked flatly. "As many as it takes to make you realize your mistake." Neo watched again as the spear once again came hurtling through the air. He moved. With a flicker of motion, he twisted his body and yanked Elizabeth out of the way. The spear missed her head by a mere fraction, but just then, another spear shot down from the ceiling and killed her. Neo was covered in her blood. Snap. "It's okay," Elizabeth said. Neo clenched his jaw. Tartarus was toying with him, forcing him to relive the same moment over and over. He looked down at Elizabeth, still alive, still warm, still doomed. No, not this time. The moment the spear came into his senses, he let go of Elizabeth and turned. His hand lashed out like lightning, fingers crackling with mimicked earth elementals to increase his strength. He caught the spear mid-flight. The force of the impact sent tremors through his arm, but he didn't let go. Tartarus raised a brow, intrigued. "Oh, you managed to resist? But you really think this is the end?" The spear exploded. The force of the explosion was far from enough to kill Neo, who had eternal and countless more defense-increasing abilities. But Elizabeth was not so lucky. Her body was burned beyond recognition. Snap. "It's okay," Elizabeth said again. Neo clenched his jaw, his breath ragged. A whistle of an object tearing through the air. A spear. Another thunk. Another lifeless body. Another snap. Again. 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 Neo's vision blurred as Elizabeth died in his arms over and over. Her blood soaked him anew with every cycle. No matter what he did, how fast he moved, how desperately he tried, she died. She always died. And Tartarus watched, waiting, enjoying. Finally, Neo spoke. "What are you trying to achieve by doing this?"
Hello everyone. We now have a Discord server. Join us for faster updates, discussions about your favorite novels, and exclusive Discord-only content. Don't miss out. See you there. Scan the QR code on the screen or enter any of the displayed links into your browser to join our Discord.